Hello and welcome to DarkMouse's Daily Scroll with your host, DarkMouse. So, again as usual, just jump right into a match. Nice. And what have we found? We have a quick match. Okay. Very few ranked matches seem to be going on. Am I recording at the wrong time or? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, if anybody knows if there's a peak time for when to get a good ranked match, let me know in the comments or an email or something. Let me know. So I could have pulled a better hand. I'll say that, because I don't really need a violent dispersal in the first few rounds. What you really want is for your deck to react in a situation where you're not having to get rid of 6 resource cards straight off. Because that means that unless you're really good at cycling your deck through your hand, constantly keeping large numbers of cards in your hand and being able to just cycle your entire deck through in a couple of rounds, you're not going to see those cards again for a while. And for an energy deck player, that's a really bad thing, particularly for a card as potent as Violent Dispersal, because that is a brilliant removal card and would be incredibly useful later on. I've got 3 in my deck, so it's not too bad, but if in the rare situation you were going to pull all 3, you'd be kind of boned late game. Now, I've got 3 resources, so I'm going to play down an Automated Forge pretty straight off. I should have probably put that more central in the middle row, because then it would cover the most number of tiles to spawn a gun automaton on. If it survives that long. As we've seen before, it doesn't always happen that way. And this person plays at least duo colour. I've been seeing a lot of people playing dual resources these days. I said dual colour because I'm used to magic, as I say. But, ow, that wasn't nice. Yeah, sparking in Automated Forge is not a nice idea. So, let's get rid of this, and let's get rid of that. Now you have nothing. Huh. Which probably wasn't the smartest thing in the world to do. I could have just waited for a creature to come out and do that, but never mind. I had these sparks I could use, and now I kind of wish I hadn't. Because, yeah, you see, that's me using my removal too early, far too early. That wasn't a good idea. So let's get the clock library down, because the earlier you get that down, well, it takes the same amount of time relatively, but the earlier game you get that down, the better off you are for being able to draw the amount of scrolls you get from it. Now, so yeah, there's a lot of dual resource decks going on here, which is quite cool. It's interesting to see people playing the different combinations, because there are obviously memorials in every resource type that gets you one of the other resource types. Like, for example, I've got law memorials, which give me order for playing them, and I've got tribal memorials, which give me growth for playing them. It's tempting to go for an energy growth deck, or an energy order deck, or hell, a combination of all 3. And I might, like I say, I think I might go for a Gravelock deck. The more astute amongst you'll have noticed that on the choosing my deck screen, ow, okay, that's a burn, quite literally a burn, which means they've got no cards in their hand now, but they are in a very good position because now my Automated Forges can't get going. Again, don't need the Cannon Automaton, we'll get rid of that. So yeah, when it came to this deck selection screen, I have an illegal Gravelock deck. The reason it's illegal is because it's less than 50 cards. Scrolls. I'm fairly sure that my scrolls are going to be punishing me at some point. Hell, I'm fairly sure they have been punishing me, giving me my high resource cards early for calling them cards. Apparently it's cardist or something. Yeah, terrible jokes. Now, ooh, this doesn't look good for my stuff. This really doesn't look good for my stuff. Ow. If that charge coil goes off and gets the... Oh, okay, that was lucky. Obviously a 1 in 4 chance, but not too bad. And there's a Thunder Surge. Now, you can see where I get kind of annoyed at this point. Again, obviously my own fault, I've got a lot of high resource cards in my deck. And a lot of relatively low resource cards in my deck. In fact, actually, I think when it comes to 6 resource cards, I've only got 7 in my entire deck. And 3 of them have come up in the first 8 rounds. So when you've got a 7 in 50 chance of drawing them, that's kind of unlucky. So that's a bit of bad luck on my side, but I'm fairly sure I can do something useful. Now, yes, I'll be doing a Gravelock deck at some point, once I have the cards for it, scrolls for it even, and we'll see how that turns out. It might come out terribly horribly, but we'll see. Yes, Clock Library went off, and now I have cards. Unfortunately, not that useful cards to me. Let's see, I've got a Spark I could use to get rid of any number of those things. Metal Heart's not in use right now. Copper Automaton's not too bad. So if I spark off... I should really spark off the crossbow guy. Oh, this is going to be... This is a tricky situation. Two structures, one of which reliably does 1 damage to something every go. And a creature, which I think is enchanted so that when it dies... my opponent, Whitemore here, gets to draw another scroll. So I've sacked for more resources, sacked the Copper Automaton for more resources. I actually probably should have sacked the Metal Heart, because, yeah, it wasn't any use to me. I still managed to take everything out though, but I should really have put the Copper Automaton down. That was a silly idea to have not done so, because using the Metal Heart I could have boosted it up next go as long as it wasn't removed. And it would have been able to do 7 damage. 6 damage now. Decimation is nasty. And there's a Desert Memorial, putting their energy up again. So, ow, okay. So the Ether Pump's getting off this go round. How are we going to do this, I wonder? Well, yeah, clock libraries are not a good idea to leave alone. Really not a good idea to leave alone. Obviously they've got like five turns before they'll count down properly and give your opponent that many cards. But if your opponent has things which just reduces the countdown to 0, and with a deck that uses order and energy, that is quite a possibility. Removal and the ability to just completely screw with your opponent's deck. Basically, order is kind of like blue for Magic. It's a bit like, it's actually, I have to call it blue-white, because it's got all that noble soldiery and stuff in it. And it's got a lot of things that really just mess with your deck entirely. Like there's cards like Pother that move your stuff around. There's cards like so Pother moves stuff around, and Kabonk just deals 1 damage. That's kind of a really basic card. So many of it. I've seen so many Kabonks, it's unreal. Obviously order isn't a lot about removal, so Kabonk is only really that useful if you've got things like my Prox Mines there. Because they've only got 1 health, and they're nice just at finishing off a unit that's been reduced to 1 health. Now it's things like the pushback spell, which get really annoying. They're a really, really useful order card, because they literally do what it says on the tin. They push back a target unit on the field to your opponent's hand, which means they've got to spend resources recasting it. And it also means that if it's gotten down to countdown 1, and next go you know it's going to turn over and really lay down the herd, then pushing it back to your opponent's hand is a brilliant way of just denying that. It doesn't get rid of it, so it doesn't put it to the graveyard and cycle it back. It puts it in your opponent's hand. So again, they've got to pay a lot of resources for it, which is really annoying. If you've got this play lined up where you're going to go, okay, next turn I can play this on this guy, and I can do a lot of damage with this, and really ruin their day. And then all of a sudden, oh, my key unit's been pushed back. Oh no, oh dear, and that really just scuppers your plans. Order is brilliant for that, and energy is brilliant for that. So an order energy deck is rather deadly for that reason. The ability to just remove things from the battlefield either by killing them or putting them back in your opponent's hand, or just moving them around into positions that your opponent really doesn't need them in. Because you can only make 1 move a turn with your units. So if you've already moved, your opponent's moved them into a position you don't want them in, then you can generally ruin their positioning quite a lot. Now I've done some good damage here, there's some good damage done to the idols, but that's not really enough, because that wings shield up there is one of the... Ow. That's a card I never use. Dealing 1 damage to adjacent tiles is nice, but it's not brilliant. I tend not to use that for that particular reason. I'm actually tempted to take out tick bombs and put those in, because I have a couple of Inferno Blasts. I might look at that, possibly, maybe. We'll see. I mean, hell, if people want to see more of those in my deck, then I will put more of those in my deck. It's as simple as that, really. Now, yeah, let's get rid of that charge coil, because that's starting to get really annoying. It got me to concentrate fire, which at this point isn't any use to me. But, yeah, at this point, I'm in less trouble than Whitemore is. They've got one idol on 2, and I don't think they've touched any of my other idols. But look at their resources. Because of those goddamn memorials, they've managed to get themselves to 6 energy resources and 6 order resources, meaning they can play pretty much anything in any combination they like. And it kind of just leaves me in the dust. So, I'm going to burn. Now, a burn against the wings shield is a really bad idea, because they've got armor equivalent to the number of units behind them. So they can at most have armor 2. Which isn't brilliant, but yeah, it saves you from things like burn, because normally I could just burn a winged shield and it would take 3 damage and die. But now I have to do accumulation in 1 hit of 5 damage to it, otherwise it ain't dying. Well, it'll just take me a lot more in the way of damage output to do it. Now, actually I've taken a couple of hits of damage with 2 idols now, I forgot about that. So let's get rid of the useless contraption, because at this point it really kind of is useless. Prox charges might be a good idea. They've used 2 Inferno Blasts. The chance of them having another one in their hand is slim, right? So we can put down the Automated Forge, and... So the thing is, I should probably be putting those in front of my Euphorian's units, but then it would just die really quickly. And now you can survive taking hits to 2 idols and losing 2 idols. Ow, that's a burn. It's interesting seeing removal spells used against me. It really, really is. It's also interesting seeing the mix they've got here. They don't seem to have a lot in the way of energy creatures, just a lot in the way of order creatures. So it looks like they've gone for a good mix of just removal and hard-hitting, cheap order creatures. Because the winged shield might only hit for 2, but with the ability to tank most damage from other creatures of a similar resource cost to it, it's quite brilliant. And all you got to do is keep things behind it, really. So as long as I don't get anything that removes everything from the board, energy does just need a nuke the board card. Now Thunder Surge can be said to be a nuke the board card, except that it only does 2 damage per to each unit. Now they all got to be connected like next to each other for adjacency to work. In this instance, a Thunder Surge would hit everything that they've got. Wouldn't quite kill everything they've got, but it would be enough to do a lot of damage. So now I'm just throwing out structures and creatures and hoping for the best at this point, because I'm in trouble. I know I'm in trouble. I need to be able to kill stuff now. But all my removal came early, and now I don't have any removal to deal with this stuff. I've used all 3 Violent Dispersals, one of which got sacked in the first turn. And I've also used up, oh wow, that one's Powerbound and has Heritage. Basically that means that when that Copper Automaton dies, which it will regardless, Whitemore's order will go up by 1, and they'll draw 2 scrolls. So energy doesn't have a lot to get you to draw scrolls for any particular thing, apart from burn. Burn, as long as the creature dies from you burning it, then you end up drawing a scroll. Now this is... that's interesting. So that Copper Automaton will finish off the Cannon Automaton, and the Winged Soldier will finish off the Idol. I am in a bit of trouble now. Oh, there's another structure. Their order goes up and they draw 2 scrolls. Right, this is going to be I'm not sure I can pull it back from this, I've got to admit. I don't know where there's my creatures. I think I just had a really bad draw to begin with for this particular game, which is a problem, but that's kind of that's kind of the risk you play with when you play a trading card game, is that the shuffle hasn't quite gone the way you need it to, and that unfortunately your opponent has drawn some really good cards and you haven't drawn what you need at all. Because it generally means that you're kind of screwed from the off. Now I wasn't from the off, I had some okay cards coming through, but now I'm in a bad position. They've got 4 cards in their hand, I've got 1 in my hand, and I'm sat there thinking, wow, what's going on now? What am I going to do to be able to recover from this? And that's 2 lots of incendiaries because she can, and I'm backed out at just 2 creatures, which is kind of bad. But anyway, that's what order and energy can do. So for those of you not sure if you want to do a dual colour deck, I would strongly recommend it. I'm going to stick with just energy, and when I get the Gravelock deck up and running, I will bring that to the fore and I'll use that. But until then, I will run with just my energy because I like just energy at this point. It's quite nice. It's still a viable option. Obviously, if you play against someone who plays 2 resource types, you want to be really careful, like really, really careful with how you play. Because generally, otherwise, there's really not a lot you can do. I mean, I'm struggling to keep up here. Throwing out copper automatons and a cannon automaton that's probably going to die rather quickly. Which is kind of unfortunate, but that's kind of just the way it plays, really. Now, I have seen tri-resource decks before, and they have gone astoundingly well. I don't quite know what this... Oh. Efficiency. That's the other thing Order is good at, is reducing the countdown of its own creatures to 0. And that can be rather punishing. Particularly with... there we go, that's another one example of it. Sorry about that. And... yeah, I'm drawing no creatures, I'm having to sack for a lot of cards. Thunder Surge, because, you know, why not at this point? The Wings Shields won't take any damage from it. I got rid of like 2 things there. But, oh no, the Wings Shields did still take damage from it. Okay. So I guess they only reduce the damage of creatures? Armor is kind of a weird rule. Now from that, I would say that burns should actually work on them. I didn't know that. Okay, fair enough. I'll bear that in mind for future games, I guess. And okay, fair enough. Never mind. They do actually have some quite potent energy creatures. The Iron Ogre is, at this point for me, that's GG. There's nothing really I can do within the next few turns that will save me. Not unless I feel like sticking down a ton of procs charges, hoping they don't have a few kabonks, or indeed decimates if the procs charges go wrong. At some points you've just got to realise that you've had a bad draw, and things are not going to plan. So I'm afraid that is my game. This is not... it's been fun to play, most definitely. Even more fun to watch. So shout out to Whitemore for being a really quite good player. Don't quite know how long's left on this particular one, but there's a mangonel. No, there's too much there for me to be able to remove. Ah, there's the procs charge dead as well. Whitemore really does know her combinations, and has made a spectacular deck. I think I'm kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to the amount of time I've spent on Scrolls, because a lot of people have been with it since the beta first opened, so a lot of people have bought it on launch, well, beta launch, and a lot of people seem to be into the whole like trading scene, Now, I don't particularly know if I have any cards that people would find worth trading. Which is kind of annoying, but never mind. Because I've been pulling a lot of like really common cards that most people must have, unless they've had really good pulls. Yeah, I know I think you can pay people gold as well for cards. I think there's an option for that in the trading menu. But I'm not entirely sure. Now, a lot of people seem to be doing that because this person's got 3 wings shields in their deck, and the wings shields haven't actually been out for that long. And if they're doing it the way I've been doing it, where it's just buying the random scrolls, unless they've had a really good luck with the try-daily deal, they must have gone for the trading part of it. I might take a look into that myself, maybe. But I like the idea of not knowing what you're going to get. It means that I have to rely a lot more on skill and strategy to get my gold. Or just losing a ton of games, which I've got to tell you is quite likely as a possibility here. Yeah, I don't know how much longer I'm going to last at this point. Hopefully a little bit longer. I can take out their clock library before they can use it. Brilliant. It's the little victories that make it now. Just the little ones. Because at the moment, that's all I've got. Which is fine. There's a big clock library. So at this stage in the Scrolls beta, I really need to think about the way I play the game. I mean, I'm coming up against an increasing number of dual resource decks, and as a result, I'm finding myself outmatched and outgunned at nearly every turn, which is fine, because that's the way the game goes. Now, I have known instances where I've beaten dual resource decks, and those have been ridiculously close games. I think it's just a case of I tend to get locked into a particular way of playing, and I shouldn't do, really. I should be more flexible whilst I play, because as it stands, I generally tend to be quite hasty with playing my removal spells. That game was quite a good example of this. I sparked a few things that I really shouldn't have sparked. I think using my removal spells against little structures that aren't really much of a threat to me is kind of silly, and I've been doing that quite a lot, so I will try and change that for the people tearing their hair out going, "No, you shouldn't have been doing this. Why are you sparking that structure? It's really useless." Obviously, it's not useless when they play it gets them more in the way of resources, which is rather useful for them. Okay, so I've had to sack a Thunder Surge for resources, and I've played down a useless contraption. Again, I've drawn a 6 resource scroll in the opening hand. That's just really not that lucky, really, which is unfortunate. I mean, I got a load of 3 resource cards in my hand as well, so unless I draw a 2 resource card anytime soon, I'm not going to be able to play anything for a couple of turns, which is kind of annoying. But I guess it's representative of the majority of my deck, which is really quite slow to start, which can be really annoying, but still, it'd be nice to not draw my 6 resource cards in my opening hand. It would just be a nice change. But I think... Oh, this guy plays Growth. Sweet. Let's hope it's only Growth. Because, yeah, the number of dual or tri-resource... The number of multi-resource decks I've been finding myself matched against these days is increasing. I mean, I can't actually remember the last time I played against a single resource deck. It's getting to the point now where most people are realising the strength of a dual resource deck. It's kind of difficult to play unless you draw your structures quite early on. So obviously you need to be able to rely on your structures queuing out. You can still sack for other resources, but you'll have, from what I understand of it, one main resource which you sack for, and then you'll have your structures, and once your structures start to really work, then you won't need to start sacking for resources anymore, because your structures will just keep cycling. Now he's moved my useless contraption, which makes it more useless than ever before, because now I've got some guy going to charge my automated forge. what can I do to stop him? Not a lot, so I'm just going to put a gun automaton down, which won't die from the kinfolk, but it will take a severe beating. In saying that, this is a growth order deck. It's quite possible that this guy will die. And there we go, there's a woodland memorial which puts up his growth and resource. It makes him more slow to start than most growth players are. And now he's got 2 of those guys out. I am in a lot of trouble. So sacking that for resources, because it's kind of needed right now. And then I think that's possibly my problem, is that when I get low on cards, I don't sack for scrolls straight away. I try and just build up my resources as quickly as possible. I think that's a habit I need to get myself out of. Is just, when I see myself low on cards and I need something new, I sack a card for more cards and think, right, if it's too expensive for me, I just sack for it, sack for resources next go around, which is the sensible way of playing it. I think it's the way that I've seen most people play it, actually, which again is the better way of playing it. Obviously, if you've got a lot of high resource cards in your deck, then that becomes a little bit more difficult to balance out. But hopefully I'll be able to get that balanced. Hopefully, he says. Now, this guy's got a lot of creatures on his side, and what I would give to be able to draw 2 cards next turn and get myself a Thunder Surge. I'm not in particularly bad shape, but I'm not in great shape either, because this guy's got cards that will count down every turn basically. And now come the memorials, which are rolling out. Jeez. So yeah, as you can see, their resource is quite high on both accounts. They can play, from the looks of it, it looks to be a relatively low resource, quick start deck, which, with a majority of green creatures, so majority of growth creatures and anything else. Now procs charges here are really useful, because if it doesn't have anything like Kabonk, then that's brilliant. Because it generally means that these procs mines should last long enough to actually kill something. Let's hope so, because I'm only running off 1 automated forge now, and there's only a charge coil in the way of that. I am tempted to take out the charge coil. It's 3 resources for something that does reliable damage every single turn. Ow, okay, never mind, there's a decimate there, which I forgot entirely about. Decimate's actually a really cheap card for what it does. Though in all fairness, it only does 1 damage to things on that row and 2 damage to an idol. So it's not too bad. It's brilliant at clearing away things that only have 1 toughness left though. For instance, my charge coil, or the procs charge that was down there. So never mind, I have more now. Brilliant. So here I have been sacking for scrolls rather than resources, which might be a bad thing, it might not be. We'll see. So if I put down a procs charge there, brilliant. I now have a line of 3 procs charges. And unless they have another decimate, I should be good. One can hope. Now, sweet, there's one guy gotten rid of, and another one gotten rid of. So I am starting to finally, remove things from the board. This time around, I haven't come across a lot of my removal spells. I've come across a fair few of my structures, but nothing else. And Decimate, again, in his hand. Jesus, guy's good. So yeah, dual resource decks are starting to become quite prevalent. People are starting to realise just how powerful they are, and once you've got the memorials for it, I don't see why not. Every now and then you come across memorials that allow you to do such things. They're not in any of the pre-constructed decks, which is a godsend really, but they are in pretty much they're random scrolls. They're not, I don't think they're rare, I think they're possibly common. The Spark Down, now that time it wasn't too early, because this time I really needed to start doing something in the way of creature removal, which is good. Of course, now we're getting into the dangerous realm of their growth resource getting high enough for them to cast things like Stag Hearts, Crimson Bulls, really boosting up the attack potential of their creatures. which is going to be interesting to see. So he's sacking for resources and has another memorial down, which increases growth. And more ragged wolves, which have haste, so instantly do damage. There's that gun automaton dead. Ow. So I'm in a bit of a bad position again. Now, I myself will probably do a Gravelock deck at some point, which will be energy and growth, because, well, I have Gravelocks in my collection. I've pulled 2 tribal memorials, and I have a Sandpack memorial because I thought I may as well try throwing some growth in there, which I then rejected out of hand after spending that gold on the Sandpack memorial, but never mind. Now, I'm going to try Gravelocks and hope for the best. There's my automatic forge gone as well. Jeez. I'm just not drawing what I need. Fair enough. Right, damage control then. I'm not out yet. I could still pull this back. I hope I can still pull this back. That's interesting. That's something that's never actually... I've never really gotten the reason behind. If you're going to move something right after you summon it, why not just summon it on the tile you're moving it to? I mean, really, what is the reason behind keeping it hanging around? I just don't see the point of it, really. So there's his kinfolk dead, so that little thorn on my side is gone, thankfully. But I still have 3 more creatures to deal with, and I don't have anything in the way of defences other than the prox mines. But at this point, Dialect doesn't need to worry about the prox mines. He's got plenty of things he can use to get rid of them, or he's got plenty of things he can use just to, well, attack on different rows. They only cover 2 rows, and you only need to kill 3 idols. On the plus side, it means that one of my idols, which is heavily damaged, might survive just that bit longer. The gun automaton down, and the ether pump, just to protect the idol it's on 2, just in case he does have a gabonk and can get rid of that prox mine. Or another decimate. This is going to be an interesting match. It already is an interesting match. So... okay. So the kinfolk veteran, that's the dead gun automaton, because that has haste. Ow. So he's got 6 scrolls in his hands. He is in a brilliant position at this point, which is kind of obvious, really. I have a copper automaton. Trying to get rid of 4 more cards. Brilliant. Right, now then. I can spark the kinfolk veteran and then burn him, which I think I might do, because he is going to be a huge thorn on my side. A Thunder Surge. Finally. Thunder Surge will actually be brilliant in this particular circumstance, because all I need to wait for him to do now is for him to just link up. There we are. Now everything... Oh. I was going to say, now that everything's all touching, a Thunder Surge is brilliant, because now it will kill everything on the board. I don't have anything that I can use to take advantage of that, really. And I've only got 6 resources, so I can't cast anything else anyway. It's tempting to wait until he reaches critical mass, but with the number of cards in a growth deck that can just buff the health of it, it's embarrassing to think of, really. So a pother, an attempted move for the prox mine. Unfortunately, the prox mine just moved back a tile rather than to either side, which has got to be kind of annoying. Hopefully we can keep that annoyance up. Unfortunately, it means now that the Thunder Surge isn't going to be as useful, because not everything's touching. I will kill 4 things as opposed to 6. I'd prefer to kill the 6. I'll be really honest. So I'm going to get rid of the copper automaton for more cards. Not the copper, yeah, the copper automaton. I bring out the cannon automaton because that should be able to live. From what's on that row, I shouldn't need to worry. Let's really hope I don't. This guy has 10 scrolls in his hand. Jesus. This is going to be really, really difficult to play against. His memorials are really cycling through his deck. I mean, he's holding fully a 5th of the cards in his deck, if he's got a 50 card deck, which I think is quite likely, considering we're seeing... Oh, there's the pushback. Yeah, that's what I mentioned in the last game. Pushback, allowing them to just put a card back into your hand from the field that was nearly at 0 countdown, which means that that's not brilliant. But what I can do now is Thunder Surge everything, which kills everything. That is a board wipe against low toughness decks, which is brilliant. I should maybe have waited. We'll see. But there's another summons. That's another thing that's useful, is that obviously the reason he's able to do that is because of the fact that he's got these things like summons, which allows you to find the next structure in your deck and bring it to the forefront. It's tempting actually, because I've pulled a couple of Law Memorials as well. It's tempting to see if I can get some summons and put the Law Memorials and some summons in my deck just to get the just to get the structures in my deck out quickly, because the structures are what really keep me going and the creatures are kind of like a late game thing. And again, he's tried to pother the Prox Mines, which has just moved it forward one. That Prox Mine is staying on that row. It is adamant that it is staying on that row and it doesn't want to go anywhere else. So the Cannon, that actually puts me in a bit of a bad position for the Cannon Automaton, because now I can't move him to where I was going to move him, which was in front of the Sister of the Fox. But never mind. It just means that he's drawing more scrolls, which kind of just cements my bad luck, really. Because Order and Growth together are also quite terrifying, because there's lots of cards in that deck that allow you to draw more scrolls. My Cannon Automaton is dead, because that Kinfolk Veteran, it can do 3 damage, and my Cannon Automaton only has an armor of 1, and it's only got 2 health left. So even with the cancelling out of 1 point of damage, it's kind of dead. But I am giving as good as I get here. Waking Stone's a bit of a problem, because that means the Waking Stones are a really, really useful structure. They've only got 3 health, and you're thinking, wow, they're actually a lot weaker than a useless contraption. Why are they useful? Because no matter how much damage you do to them, they will only ever take 1. It's not armor. They don't have armor like 1,000,000 or whatever. They just will always only take 1 damage from from anything. You could Thunder Surge them. You could use Incendiaries on them, and they would still only take 1 damage. Ow, Decimation. Again, a nasty card to use. It's quite potent. It does obviously affect everything on that row, as shown when it damaged his cards too. But other than that, it's not too bad. And here's the cycling. He's got his Kinfolk Braves back, and Eye of Eagle gets him another creature from his deck. I am in a bit of trouble again. Oh, it's a foil as well. Nice. That must be a tier 3 card, which kind of makes sense considering how many Eyes of Eagle there are out there. There's a lot of common cards floating around, which once you've crafted into a foil card, look really nice. I think that's kind of my goal, is to try and get myself to a point where I can have just an entire deck made up of tier 3 cards. Because can you imagine what that would look like on the battlefield? It would look brilliant. But unfortunately, I'm still having a few problems with trying to craft the good automatons. I have 5 of them, which means I can craft one of them into a tier 2 card. You'd think, wouldn't you? But on the crafting table, only 2 show up, which is not that useful. Now, here we are. Now I've started to roll. Well, not roll as such, because I doubt I'll be able to roll very far. But I should, hopefully, be able to keep him from doing any more damage to me than he already has done. So I should be able to... I should be able to just hang on long enough to turn it around. You'd think, wouldn't you? Ow. Pushback is really nasty, and I suppose if you're holding that many cards in your deck and you're cycling through pretty much constantly your creatures and your structures, then everything else in your deck is extraneous, and you will get it back pretty quickly. Now, I haven't done any damage to any of his idols. I have the possibility of maybe turning this around. My clock library is not going to last that much longer if I can't get rid of that kinsfolk guy. Or alternatively, I could just play another one. We're going to get rid of the incendiaries though, because they aren't going to be that helpful. Not really. Either pump goes down, and so does the clock library. I think at this point I should probably just give up on the top 2 idols and concentrate on the bottom 3. I'm trying to protect the clock library at this point, that's why I did that. Which may or may not have been a good idea. This is going to be painful. I need something like a violent dispersal. But at this point I'm holding 1 scroll in my hand and my opponent's holding 9. They can cast whatever they like, and if they just keep casting their memorials down, they've got some really cheap structure walls, which get them resources for being played. There we are. So yeah, this is the end of my cannon automaton, it appears. Is it? No, it's not. Oh, I keep forgetting because armor 1 applies to each attack. So if that had been 5 damage overall, that would have been brilliant, but it wasn't. So I either need to hang on for 1 more turn for my clock library to be able to go off. So hopefully, if in his next turn he doesn't kill it, or push it back, I'll have more cards in my hand to choose from. So I have a Violent Dispersal, which I'm going to use on that guy, because then he's got to make a huge choice between what he's doing. So that clock library should hopefully be able to get me more cards in my next go. I can really hope. Because hopefully this guy's deck cycling hasn't been that brilliant. I'm not entirely sure why I said that now. And that gets rid of Prox Mine. So that clock library is kind of dead. Because it only has 5 health and they have 5 between them. Ow. Jeez. Wow. Yeah, hats off to Dialex. He is a really, really good player. I don't think I've seen anybody quite so efficiently cycle cards through their deck before. And I am quite impressed, needless to say. It's quite cool to play against a deck like this. It's an interesting feeling. And it must be something akin to how other players have felt when I've just sat there and going, nope, you can't have that, and just killed it every single time. But I have another clock library out, which is nice. No, I don't. That was the one that was pushed back into my hand. So let's Emma Bond him. Let's put the clock library back behind that useless contraption. Because hopefully there won't be much that can get through them both. Oh, that clock library should survive a little bit at least. Okay, fair enough. So he knew that guy would die and sacked him to get more cards. That's fair enough. Either way, it's still a dead guy. It just means he's got more cards, which is unfortunate for me, really. I don't see any way that I can come back from this. Not unless I get really lucky and draw Thunder Surge within the next turn or so. Because that would get rid of a lot of things. Not procs charges than Ether Pump. I should probably stop putting stuff like the Ether Pump down because he's just going, no, you can't have that. Push it back, push it back, push it back. I should just sack for cards until I find myself my removal stuff. Which, actually, yeah, that's a good idea. Let me know in the comments if you think this is a good idea or not, or hell, just rip it to shreds. But I have a feeling that if I'd kept sacking cards until I'd find sacking cards for cards until I found my removal stuff, I could have turned this around a little bit. Because I could possibly have been able to go Thunder Surge and take out a swathe of things. Most things there only have 2 health. Ah, there's Goat Hand. Goat Hand's a nice growth card that does a lot of damage. That's GG to him. Yep. Well done, Dialex. Good game. So yeah, a shout out to Dialex and Whitemore for letting me record their games. Thank you very much. It's been brilliant. Now I have enough gold, let's go to the store. What do I get? The suspense is killing me. A catapult of goo. Fair enough. That's all I've got time for today, guys. Please like, favourite and subscribe to support the channel. And I'll catch you next time.